Hello, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Deidre Reigel Hope and Healing Radio Show. This is no ordinary podcast. This production has heart and soul, healing and wisdom, artists and authors. Deidre has spent her entire life promoting people, projects, and products that further hope and healing. She has also been a positive force in the entertainment industry as a vocalist, performer, musician, composer, conductor, author, and healer. You will be in good hands spending this time with her and her guests as they will guide you into another space where you can relax and feel their positive energy. Thank you for joining us. And now, here is the amazing Deidre Reigel with her special guest.
Welcome to part 5 of the New Beginnings series. Today's guest is Jeff Michaels. Jeff is a husband, father, and a man with a heart to serve and help others. He has had a long career in law enforcement as a sheriff's deputy, then went on to become a financial advisor, and all through his life has been a musician, specifically a clarinetist. Jeff played clarinet in the Summit Orchestra, which was an orchestra I founded back in the mid-90s. And pardon the pun, Jeff was instrumental in helping the orchestra gain residency at the Largo Cultural Center on the west coast of Florida. And that specific help to that orchestra made a huge difference in moving it forward. So as I say, I have experienced Jeff as a man with a heart to serve and help others. And because of that, I have specifically invited Jeff to be part of this series on New Beginnings, because there's so much shifting in our world. So all of that said, Jeff Michaels, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and work with you on this.
So am I. Thank you so much for taking your time. I'd like to get right to the questions, Jeff. From your perspective of having been in law enforcement, transitioning to a financial advisor role, and to where you are now in your life, what has been your uppermost guiding force that has kept you motivated and on track and kept you sane through all of the changes that we're experiencing?
I think it's the same. I mean, I've always been wanting to do more. For some reason, it's just something in me. When I became a deputy, I was going to just be a deputy sheriff, and then it's like I want to be on the underwater search and recovery team. So I got my certification and got on the dive team for quite a while. I wanted to do more. There was an incident when I was a new deputy that prompted me to become a high liability instructor, which means to teach firearms, defensive tactics, and driving. So that because of an incident, I wanted to do more. I wanted to help future deputies and the current deputies on things. Fast forward now, after retiring, I got into 2 other music groups, and I was just going to play. This is all I had to do. I was just going to join the groups. I just wanted to play. One is an orchestra. I play clarinet in that one, bass clarinet, and double on alto sax. And then the other group is a concert band, where I play clarinet, bass clarinet, and alto sax, which I first start off as violin. And then that whole story in high school. But anyways,
Yes.
yeah, that was my first instrument, which I picked back up again. So I don't know, something just keeps going of moving me forward, just not sitting around.
Right.
So hopefully I didn't get off score here, but no pun intended. I always like the movie Squirrel, I go off on a tangent. So
Right.
There's always something, I got in this business. I just wanted to do more in the financial services business. I was doing it part-time. Was at the sheriff's office just to make some extra money and to help other people, teach other people what I do. So it just seems like anytime I get into something, I always want to do more. I always want to learn more and help out more. I'm wired that way. I don't know why, but
Right.
I'm just not sitting back on the laurels. I just want to help out and get bigger, I guess you would say.
Right. Right. So what I'm hearing you say, and see if I've got this right, is that you want to do more and give more. And there's a teaching component there as well, because you see the need. So in doing more for others, you're also initiating growth for yourself as well. So this becomes, in my opinion, exponentially beneficial for everybody involved. Did I gather up what you said correctly?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you have to keep growing. You know, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
And if you're sitting there, if you're teaching other people things, that means you're going to grow. And if you can teach it to someone else, that means you know what you're doing. As long as you teach it correctly and they're learning. And one of the things that happened when I was at the sheriff's office is there was another major incident, which I'm not going to go into, but another major incident. And I wasn't even in the training division at that time, but I saw the deputy that was involved in that, and he came over and he gave me a huge hug. You know, thanked me for the training that I had given since I was in that division. Basically, it saved their lives. It saved those deputies' lives. So,
wow, Jeff.
I was just teaching. I was like, and kind of came to tears a little bit, not really realizing how much an impact I had made, and a lot of the other instructors who taught me to become an instructor, to pass that along. So that was, it could have been 2 or 3 deputies that had been shot on that scene. So.
Dang. Wow. You know, in all the years that you and I have known each other, I did not know these things. Of course, you and I knew each other as I was the conductor of an orchestra that you played with. And I knew that you were a sheriff's deputy, but it never came up in conversation. And this is such a wonderful piece of conversation we're having right now, because I know, as you know, that there's so much pressure now about cops, police officers, and some of them are bad and they do bad things, and there's a whole lot out there about that. But you're one of the guys who really came into this to protect and serve. And I remember a conversation that you and I had on the phone several weeks ago when one of the nasty incidents has happened with a police officer someplace, I forget where in the country, where the gentleman in custody died because of how he was handled once he was in custody. And I think you and I had a conversation on the phone, or it may have been on Facebook, but you said that the police officer's job is to protect and serve even those who are in custody. And I saw this elsewhere on Facebook as well. And that statement catches my attention. And you're telling a story now about teaching and developing something, getting on the dive team because you wanted to do more, to serve more, and serving your fellow officer, and that desire to do more actually saving lives. Jeff, that is remarkable. I salute you. It's something I never knew. Wow.
I appreciate that.
Wow. Yeah. And your husband, your father, at the end of the day, you would go home to your family after a day of serving. And so now let me come back to the music, how that has woven through your life. And I'd forgotten that you played violin. That was your first instrument. So in my career as a professional in my industry, I found that many people in the serving professions, such as doctors, attorneys, law enforcement, have also the component of music in their lives. And it becomes not just a relief for them or an outlet, it's also another component of serving. So I'd like to talk about the music going through your life. How did you actually start in the exploration and development of your musical skills, Jeff?
There was the music teacher in elementary school that signed me up, because now where I was, they have middle school. At the time, it was a junior high school. So when I went to 7th grade, she signed me up for band beginning strings. Like, okay, sounds good. So I took up the violin. So I played violin 7th grade to 9th grade. And then I realized the high school didn't have an orchestra. And I wanted to stay in music. So I saw the band. I saw this is in South Florida, saw the marching band. So I wanted to stay in it, and then I decided to switch to alto sax. So I started playing alto sax. I still like the violin, and actually my dream was to become a kind of studio musician, playing for plays and for operas and all that, which basically being some orchestra kind of, it solved that, not solved it, but it fulfilled that dream of playing for an opera, playing for singers, and doing that. That was fun. And then the marching band, after marching season was over, the band director said that we don't need so many alto saxophones. You guys got to either play alto clarinet or bass clarinet. So I taught myself how to play bass clarinet, which is the same fingering as a regular clarinet. It's just bigger.
Right.
So I did that, and then I kept going. I moved to another school up in Broward County, and over there, and I played sax, and I was in musicals and stuff like that. And then fast forward a while, of course I got out of music after I'd left high school, and then got back into it when I joined Summit. Actually, back up, I was with two sergeants at the sheriff's office. They helped me do something. They saw a wooden saxophone my sister got me. So they're asking me about it, and then they got me into their church orchestra. So here's a Jewish boy, a Jewish guy, playing in a United Methodist church over here in Tampa Bay. So I got me back into the alto sax, and then from then I got into Summit Orchestra and Singers playing clarinet. I met a lot of great people, and there's some people I'm still friends with.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, I've seen them now in the orchestra that the other orchestra that I'm involved in. We run into each other. So, and then my kids, my daughter and son got into music. My daughter started with clarinet piano, then went to clarinet and played oboe. She went to Florida State University and became a music therapist. And my son played trumpet. And then he went into drum corps and did drum corps for 2 years with a large corps up in the Northeast. I don't know if I can name them, but he enjoyed it. I mean, so they've been in music all these years as well.
Is your daughter still in music, Jeff? Am I correct?
Yes. She is a music therapist. She loves it. She's also teaching at her synagogue for the religious school, and does some lessons. So yeah, she's very much into it. My son's not into it as much, but he helps out with the marching band. That actually he and my daughter are both drum majors in the marching band. And so they've gone back and helped out the marching band.
Right. This is a legacy that you have created for your children. And I'm going to pause just a moment here and say, this is such a delight to hear you share your story. And for our listeners who are experiencing this chat that we're having, I'm hoping that it is inspiration for all of us to really value the lives that we're living and know that our actions are like a pebble in a pond. And of course, we never know how we're affecting somebody. And I think many of us right now, especially in these times that we're living in, feels so uncertain. I'm imagining that many of us are consciously making a choice between becoming entirely self-focused just to survive, or doing the opposite and turning our intentions outward to create goodness and leave a legacy and lay a new foundation for what I believe is a new earth, or a new something that we're creating here. So I'm really valuing, Jeff, the fact that you're willing to share your story. Thank you for being so forthcoming with the details of your life. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's, my son had always asked me to, certain stories about what happened on the street, and I never really told him about a lot of stuff. Maybe just some of the funny things. One of the funny things was, I'd come home for dinner. I was working evening shift and came home for dinner in October. Keep that in mind. Came home about 11:30 or so, 12:15. Came around the corner of my house and saw a silhouette standing by my front door. Being surprised, I started drawing my gun because I didn't know who the heck it was. Well, my wife put out a Scarecrow for Halloween. So those stories, I try and keep that going, the funny stuff. I never really told them about the other stuff. Yeah, they enjoyed that one immensely.
Oh yes. Dad, did you shoot the Scarecrow dead, right?
Almost. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that happen that the kids still laugh about and they think it's funny. But the other stuff I just didn't tell them. I didn't, a lot of things I didn't see.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, that I saw that I did not tell them. Let me
Right. Well,
rephrase
you're
that.
protecting your family at that point because the world could be very ugly or the world can be very beautiful or a combination thereof. And I think we want to protect our families, those we love. And I really appreciate this story because at the end of the day, whatever uniform you take off, we're still human.
Right. And,
You know,
and
yeah,
it also affects the home life. What's going on? My daughter, our political views are sometimes the same and sometimes separate. And with all and she gets very upset. She's very emotional. I mean, I love that girl. So we got in some emotional arguments where she's crying and she was not understanding why on these protests, why law enforcement is dressed, as she put it, just like the army, being the army. And I said, they have to protect themselves. It may be peaceful, but there's always that one or two people out there that don't want to be peaceful. They want to cause problems, so they have to be prepared. And she wasn't understanding that you still have to be prepared of what's going on. Things may change. And when I was new in the academy, how they put it to me was the pendulum swings both ways over time.
yes,
I kind of relate this kind of to the Vietnam War era towards our military. I
right.
was growing up I'm sure you know all of what was going on with that. I just thought about that recently, that it's kind of the same thing almost. The
Right.
military went there, did what they're supposed to do, was ordered to do stuff. They follow those orders, and we're doing the same thing. Is it perfect? Are we perfect? No. That's why we're human. And people don't seem to understand that. We have the training, but we're still human.
Right.
Um,
Right.
in any industry, you're going to have people like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a professional in the music and, artistic industries, I get it. At the end of the day, I brush my teeth too. And, but, coming back to your daughter and feeling the difficulty seeing the police officers dressed as though they're going off to war, the reverse question would be for her, what if that were you as her father on the front lines of these peaceful protests? Would she want you to protect yourself to the fullest extent possible? And that, depends on the perspective that we're coming from, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did say that to her. So what if it was me? I can't say, wait a minute, let me go get my stuff on. Don't throw stuff at me yet. You just can't do that. You
Yeah,
kind of like the Boy Scout motto, you got to be prepared.
right. Yeah.
So, and she was just very emotional and she didn't, get that. And my son has I mean, like I said, they're totally opposite on their views and everything, about a lot of stuff. So it's some interesting conversations at our house.
I'll just bet. Well, again, this is talking about who you are as a human being. You're not identifying yourself as a sheriff's deputy or just a financial advisor or just a clarinetist or just a violinist or any of these things. You are Jeff Michaels. You're the whole being who has engaged in these things throughout your life with I think a guiding force, Jeff, if I'm reading it right, for the benefit of our listeners, to do more, be more, learn more, grow. And it doesn't matter what uniform you have on, whether it's a sheriff's deputy's or the financial advisor's business suit or the tuxedo playing in the orchestra or the jeans and t-shirt when you're camping. You are a human being, a full-on human being who's living life to the fullest and leaving a legacy for everybody who touches your life and vice versa. And I'm asking myself if this is where we're really returning now in this process of new beginnings. I think we all know that the old way of life is rapidly going away from us. We will probably never return to what we called normal, that we thought was normal even 1 year ago from today's date in September of 2020. And we're creating something new. And what shall we base that on? Shall we base it on the old systems that maybe didn't work so well? Or shall we now be courageous enough to do something new? And if so, what is that newness and how do we foundation ourselves? And I think we're having to strip away all of the uniforms and personas that we put on and come back to the fact that we are human and all 7.8 billion of us are in this together. Does that feel about right as far as what you're experiencing, Jeff?
Like I said, is that you have to grow, you have to adjust and change. You can't, stay in that same paradigm of this is the way it is. This is where I was born. This is the way we always do it. So we've always done it. You're going to have to move. Even before this, it was always said that you still have to grow and look at I would say the next new thing, but grow and get out of the rut that you're in and change up some things. That's where the growth is coming. And that's where it happens, is when you're out of your zone. I mean, I'm taking a coaching program, and one of the terms they use is the terror barrier. You want to do something new, you want to do it, and you're terrified. And we're just going through this with my daughter. She's moving in, she got a new job, and she's moving down a little further south, and she's terrified, and I understand. And anytime you're going to something new, there's that terror barrier is like stopping you from doing what you want to do, or what could be out there on the other side. You're doing what if this doesn't work? And what if, oh my God, what if I screw up? What if I, fail? And what is everybody to say? And I go through this, I've gone through this a long time, and you and I've had these conversations on the phone, and you're going, oh my God, it's a terror barrier. And once you blast through it, you feel so much better. You feel so much better. It's like playing in a concert, have that big solo or something. You're terrified, and you have to go to the bathroom 1,000 times because you're so nervous about it. So in our life, you have to change. You can't sit and say, this is the way I'm going to do it. This is who I am. That's the way it is. Otherwise you're not going to grow and see what else is out there. And I'm fighting with that too. I'm still working through that as well to grow. I mean,
Right.
I went, going to seminars. They say you go to seminars, and I think I told you about the one story. The question is when were you like in the zone? When were you in it? Nobody else was around, and nobody else saw you, or you didn't see anybody else, and you were just into it. And how music and law enforcement wove in my life. There was the couple times that I almost shot somebody. I forgot everybody else was around me, and there's scientific research on that shows what happens to your body and everything when you're in that type of situation, of a stressful situation. You've trained for it, and everything slows down, and you forget everybody else is around. It's just you in that time. And the other part was with you playing. We were playing Apollo 13, and it was just before Memorial Day. And we had the video going, and the orchestra was just, we were just on it. The trumpet player soloist was just on it. We were forgot everybody else was around there. I didn't even realize the audience was out there. And just like when I was about to shoot somebody in this, after we were done, I had to shake my eyes a little bit of like, oh, I'm back.
Right.
That was a whole new feeling. That was a great drug of the playing of
Right.
the music. Let me put it that way.
Right.
But there's times, you're terrified about doing something, but once you look at it and go, okay, I did it. That was great. I can do this again. I can do something new.
Right. Jeff, I'd like to share with you and with our listeners my version of that story, my side of the story about the orchestra. And I remember about a year ago, you shared that with me after all these years. And we're talking more than 15 years ago. And if we talk about the terror barrier and the utter terror that's involved there, from my perspective, I started an orchestra as a woman at a time when women were still frowned upon to be in a position of being on the podium with a baton in their hand. It's beginning to shift, but it was still difficult. And I began to create an orchestra. I'd come back to the States from 3 years as a singer-dancer in Quebec and thought I'd like to start an opera orchestra because I saw a need. There was nobody doing opera. There were a lot of orchestras, but nobody was dedicated to opera. And so I thought, well, I'll just create an orchestra. And it sounded really good when I was living in Quebec, came back to the States and thought, oh, time to do that. And talk about terror. And of course, I couldn't give into it. And I remember the first orchestra rehearsal that I had. There were 9 people who showed up, and you were not yet a member of that orchestra. And I thought, well, this is an interesting beginning. And to deny the fact that I had a certain amount of terror, fear, self-doubt, whatever, would be to tell a lie. I had a lot of trepidation at that point. How would this actually work? Was I up to the task? I don't have a PhD in conducting. I just kind of just got into it. I'm a singer dancer. That's how I started out. So there was a lot of concern on my part. Could I stand up to the job? So fast forward to, I think it was a year ago, you and I were on the phone, and you related this story to me about when were the times in your life when you were in the zone. And it reduced me to tears because it was such a poignant moment for you. And the fact that I did not give in to terror, did not give up, but pursued the development of Summit Orchestra, gave you a chance to have a moment that was life-changing for you. And so on, and so on, and so on. Was it a lot of hard work to do that orchestra? Yes. Would I often be up until 5 o'clock in the morning, the day of a rehearsal, getting the music prepared? Yes. Did I have my moments of, again, terror? Yes. But I remember somebody asking me one time, just ahead of a concert, well, Deidre, what happens if you make a mistake when you're on the podium conducting? And I turned and looked at this person and I said, on the podium, there are no mistakes. And that was the mentality I had to have because I had so many people depending on me. But I rose to the occasion. And all these years later, Jeff, you and I are still friends. We're here doing this wonderful conversation today that I hope a whole host of people listen to. And we're talking about overcoming terror. And because I did, you benefited. Because you did, you benefited. And so on, and so on, and so on. This is exponential and something I'm very happy for you about. I'm very happy for me. And quite frankly, I was so proud of what that orchestra did and how we all supported each other. We created something magnificent. And it really came back to me making a decision and not giving into the terror and making a new beginning for myself and having the courage to do what it took to see it through. And that, I think, is the magic about life. What do you think about my theory about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you had to grow, you had to go through it. I mean, you're saying a lot of things are happening now, bigger things, but we only take care of our own lives and how it affects others. And everybody, surround yourself with people,
Right.
and who want the same thing. Do you get like opposing opinions? And that's fine. That's great. That's where that growth comes from, when you have the opposing, or like, can we think about this way? But you keep going. You make a mistake up on the podium. We kept going. At a concert, you got to keep going.
Oh, there was one specific incident I remember when I turned 2 pages instead of 1 and began conducting in 6/4 time, and you all still were playing in 4/4 time. And I tell the story, I thought I saw 32 heads lift up and look at me with a quizzical look like, oh my gosh, Deidre, what are you doing? And we all got through it. I realized my mistake. You all were tight. You caught it, and you trusted me enough to get us back on, and you trusted yourselves enough to get us back on, and we all went on. And so the story that there are no mistakes on the podium was actually not true, but we overcame it. We overcame it because we had a unified approach. And I tell that story with a twinkle in my eye and a little chuckle in my voice, because I turned 2 pages instead of just 1, and I blew it. I made a mistake, and we caught each other. We all caught each other on it. So, Jeff, let me return to my list of questions I intended to ask, as much as I value where we've gone here. So, years of working as a police officer, as a sheriff's deputy, it seems to me that you'd have to go into a situation you never knew what was coming down the pike from minute to minute, and you would have to be present in the moment, assess the situation, and sometimes in the blink of an eye decide what to do. In other words, what course of action would you take, and actually have a vision as to the outcome. So first of all, is that a correct assessment on my part?
It is. And we had discussion about this Supreme Court rulings. One of them is like, the scene is always changing, this dynamic. What I used to do is to do the what if training in my head. Just go into a call, the what ifs. That kept me sharp. And that was taught to me. Again, I've been taught by other instructors, and I passed that on, is the what ifs. When I'm on a call, I can't do all the what ifs when I have people asking me the questions, but when I'm going to the call, okay, here's the scenario, here's what's going on. what if this, I can do this, and it just keeps you sharp. So you're not just kind of winging it, even though there's times you are winging it. But that's how you keep sharp. So yeah, and you're thinking the worst, and that's probably part of my paradigm is of what's happening now. I'm trying to move, one of the questions you have is what's next for me. So I'm trying to move away from that. I'm not thinking the worst case scenario. There's probably times I should probably be severely injured or dead or shot, and things like that. So, I was lucky on a lot of things.
Right.
That's really how you keep your mind sharp for the what ifs. Don't scare yourself, but this is how you kind of play the game, of keeping sharp, or what can you do, and maybe things pop in your head. Oh, the aha moments, I guess you would say.
Right.
Of moving on to something else. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Moving on to my life of what's happening.
Right. So we're talking about having a vision for the outcome. Being prepared for the worst in case you need to be, having a vision for the very, very best outcome, and navigating through all of that. So as a former police officer, I think one of your goals would have been to come out of a call alive and intact, and to serve the others to the very best of your abilities, highest outcome for all concerned. So very correct here. You answered my next question. What is next for you is navigating to see what works the best, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Do I stay in the industry I'm in now? Looking for something else. When I decided to retire, you talk about anxiety and that terror barrier. It was awful. And everybody I think goes through that when they're changing their careers of what's next and what's going to happen. Oh, geez, that's, again, what am I going to fail? I am not sure. I can't tell you what's next. I'm still looking. I'm still growing. I'm reading, listening to stuff. Sometimes it can be overwhelming when you're, listening to all these podcasts and listening to all, the videos, and come to my seminar. It can be overwhelming on some things. So
Right.
You have to pick and choose of what's good for you and what feels right for you. I'm trying to figure out how to meditate, and keeping my mind still a little bit. Some other ways of rewiring your mind a little bit is I'm in the coaching program, Write with Your Left Hand. So I took James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, on the Serenity chapter. I took the first paragraph, and I'm writing that out every day with my left hand.
Wow.
Could it do something? I don't know. It's probably a little bit better than my right hand writing. So, but anyway.
Wow.
But I don't know what's next for me. There's just, I can't sit at home, sitting on the couch, because it's what kind of life is that?
Right.
I'm not going to let what's happening out there worry me so much and scare me so much. I have to watch it. My mom is elderly. I'm the only one that can go into where she's living, the facility she's living at, to help her out. So I do watch it and take care, even as frustrating it is for the process of getting into the facility, but I still have to do it.
Right.
But what's next? I mean, I don't know what's next for me.
Jeff,
Not sure.
you are not alone. And this is why I think our conversation today is so valuable for so many people, especially you speaking as a man. I think men in our world are expected to have all the answers magically, slay the dragon, make everything safe for everybody, and whatever they have to sacrifice to do it well. So that's that. And I think we forget, although I think this is changing as well, that men have feelings too. Men have as much humanity as we women have. And I think this is so refreshing. I can only speak for myself as a woman, as a human being, to hear a man who was, for years put on a uniform to help and serve others say, I don't know what is next for me. That is so refreshing. And as frustrating as it can feel right now, it's actually one of the most helpful things that I think our listeners can hear you as a man with your background say, I don't know what's next for me. And I'm working on growing into that and experiencing that. And for that, Jeff Michaels, I salute you. I salute your honesty and your integrity. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. It is. It's been the past 5 years since retiring in 2015. It really has been difficult for me. I get up and I leave the house just to get out of the house so that I'm not sitting around, because you can get lost and go in the rabbit hole around the house. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
meet other people,
Yeah.
networking. Even though I kind of networked at, where I was, that was a big thing, is getting out there and networking with people, talking about, my business. And that's a whole new thing. When half my life I was in law enforcement, even though I was in the financial services industry as part-time, everybody knew me. Everybody called me up and still asked me, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I have to say, is it a law enforcement question or is it financial services? Oh, it's law enforcement. So, people still see me as law enforcement. So, working on that, again, the networking was it still is. It's still a bit, we still do it on Zoom. But being out there and putting myself out there of my business, that was, that's been difficult, how people are seeing me.
Right.
There's a lot. I mean, again, I haven't found the light shining down on me
Of course, many of us are still have to think, where is the light? Where did it go? So, Jeff,
and as you can tell, is my singing. That's why I play an instrument. I don't even know what note that was. That's
That's perfectly fine, Jeff. Somebody's going to tell us. So I know we're coming to the end of our time here, sadly, because there's so much that we can continue to talk about. But again, this is very refreshing hearing from you. Of course, the music, I think, has been such an integral part of your life for so many reasons. So just a few final words here, Jeff. Drawing on your own life experience, which is substantial, do you have any final words of wisdom and encouragement for our listeners?
Listen to a lot of other speakers, and one of them is Art Williams. You just gotta keep going, keep moving. If you stop, you're gonna die. Right. Basically.
Yes.
You got to keep going. You're gonna get run over. I'm not saying you have to run and everything, but you have to keep going, no matter what no you get, what obstacle you're gonna see. All the speeches I listen to on YouTube, and just to get me in the morning to get going, don't stop. And again, what you're doing, if it's not right, then pivot and change. That's another book I read. I've got a whole bunch of books. My wife keeps looking at me like, "What are you doing?" So, you just got to keep going. Music again has been my life. My whole life, as my aunt and uncle have been in show business since the 1950s. In 4 big movies. Yes, so, and they kept going.
Yes.
Even though they didn't make it, real big, they had an impact on a lot of students. For teachers, became teachers as well. And that's it. You got to keep going. If
keep going.
Keep going. That's it. If you don't grow, you're gonna die. I'm not physically die, but emotionally you're gonna die. You're like, okay, what? You got to just keep looking for that. And it may be in your backyard too.
Yes.
Acres of Diamond. That's a great story. Acres of Diamonds. It may be in your backyard of what you can do instead of going off somewhere else.
It often is. It often is in our backyard, because that's where our heart is. That's been my experience anyway. Of course, I agree with you to keep going. It's much easier to be guided and directed when we're on the move than when we're sitting still. And that's a great piece of encouragement for me as well, because it would be easy for all of us to just park ourselves on the sofa and say, well, I don't feel like doing anything. This is all too overwhelming. So keep going. This is wonderful. Jeff, in conclusion, I'm assuming some people may be wanting to reach out to you. And with your kind permission, I'm going to give your email information and your business phone in case people would like to talk with you further. So I'll start with the email. It is P. Paul, S. Sam, D. David, C. Charlie, O. Orange, N. Nancy, the number 4 at yahoo.com. And that's because I couldn't read my own writing. So thank you for correcting me, Jeff. And then see how we all look out for each other. And then Jeff's business phone is area code 727-201-9807. That's area code 727-201-9807. 9807. And by the way, Jeff is in the Eastern time zone. That is important that we all know that, because people all over the country will be listening to this. Jeff Michaels, I thank you so very much for sharing with us your experience, your honesty, your transparency and giving us your words of wisdom and encouragement. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed it, and thank you.
Okay. To our listeners, see you next time. Take care in between.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of this podcast, nor is any content intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness of any kind, or substitute for proper professional care in this regard. We sincerely hope you have enjoyed today's show. If you're not already a subscriber, please click on the link and join our ever-growing community of goodwill. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please contact us at drhoperadio@gmail.com. That's drhoperadio@gmail.com. All of us here at the Deidre Reigel Hope and Healing Radio Show wish you a day filled with hope and joy. Till next time, namaste.